All right, seems to be slowing down now, so let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Wilmic's second free CLE Friday program of 2025. I'm attorney Matt Beyer, Senior Vice President here at Wilmic. I'm thrilled to be with you today alongside members of the Spellbook team. A warm welcome to our valued Wilmic policyholders, members of the Paralegal Association of Wisconsin, and the many other professionals joining us from across the state. We're especially pleased to share that today's program has been approved by the Wisconsin Board of Bar Examiners for a law practice management continuing legal education credit. As you all know, artificial intelligence and particularly large language models have been making waves across every industry, including, not surprisingly, the legal profession. Over the past year, many of Wilmic's CLE programs and articles have focused on the ethics of using AI. But the message we heard loud and clear from many of you at our last session was give us something more hands-on. So today we're excited to do just that. We're proud to bring you a practical look at Spellbook, an AI-powered legal drafting tool that Wilmic has seen in action. What impressed us is not only how it streamlines drafting and enhances efficiency, but how it integrates built-in safeguards to help ensure that your use of AI stays within the bounds of the rules of professional conduct. And even better, Spellbook has generously offered discounted pricing on their platform for Wilmic policyholders. Yet another benefit of being part of the Wilmic family. Details on that discounted pricing to follow the program. Just a quick note that the materials for today's program will be provided to attendees at the conclusion of the program. So with that, let's dive in and allow me to introduce Dave Thain. Dave is a technology strategist and academic program leader with a focus on transformational technology. Dave holds an MBA in strategy and entrepreneurship from the University of Ottawa and a Master of Science in Learning Technology from the University of Oxford, where he conducted research under the mentorship of Professor Rebecca Einen, if I said that correctly, head of the Oxford Internet Institute. During a 6+ year tenure at Gartner as a senior management consultant, Dave provided strategic guidance on large-scale technological transformations for Fortune 500 companies and government agencies. Currently, as the program manager for strategy and academic partnerships at Spellbook, Dave spearheads initiatives that integrate AI advancements into legal education, fostering collaboration between academia and industry to drive innovation in legal tech. With Dave today is John Borlée. He is a seasoned legal tech professional with a strong foundation in business development, having spent 4 formative years at Clio during its early growth phase. He leveraged his experience in SaaS environments to excel in subsequent roles, ultimately joining Spellbook as the company's first account executive. Based in Vancouver and freshly returning from Japan, John brings a strategic, client-centric approach to scaling innovative legal tech solutions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave, and he can introduce who I just met as Moose, who will be accompanying us in the chat room. Over to you, Dave.
Perfect. Matt, thank you so much for the incredibly kind introduction. Before I introduce Moose, can I just get a thumbs up that you can see my screen? Awesome. Perfect. So thank you everyone from the Wilmic Network. And thank you, Matt and Stephanie, for joining. As Matt mentioned, we have a partnership with Wilmic that'll, not only include these educational seminars that we're really excited about, but also a discount on our AI solutions. So we're really excited to move forward with the partnership. It was a real pleasure working with you. And as mentioned, I am joined by my colleagues, John Burley, who will be doing the demo for Spellbook, as well as Mustafa. Mustafa is actually going to be in the sidebar. He's a customer support specialist, and he's also one of our strongest technical experts here in Spellbook. So if you have any questions that are technical in nature, if you have any additional questions about Spellbook, about our technology suite, Moose is incredibly professional and would be happy to answer your questions in the actual chat of the webinar. So please don't be shy. So today we're going to be presenting on Agentic AI and the future of legal practices. And before we actually jump into the crux of our presentation, we did want to introduce ourselves, specifically Spellbook. So Spellbook is actually the very first commercial generative AI copilot for drafting. And we're currently being leveraged by over 3,000 clients. In fact, I think we're drawing very close to our 4,000 client. So looking forward to turning that 3 to a 4. But we're actually leveraged by law firms, in-house teams, and a number of small law firms as well as large enterprise organizations. So you can see some of the larger clients that we work with on the bottom of this slide. And so just before we jump into the heart of the lecture, we did want to go over Spellbook Suite very quickly so you can better contextualize what we're talking about later in the presentation. Spellbook actually affords you the ability to review contracts. So you can redline your contracts and catch risks that are occurring. You can draft entirely new contracts and new clauses from scratch. You can ask our AI, to answer questions, to answer, to get any quick answers and to ask about any changes that you've actually made in the contract as you're working. And then our final feature is benchmark. So you can actually compare your contract to industry best practices and standards and determine if anything's missing in your contract. So I'll ask John, who's the account executive here, to take it away with the demo.
Perfect. Thank you, Dave, for the introduction. I'll come in here and share my screen. You should be able to see this here. So this is the Spellbook Word plugin. You would be able to open up your document as you normally would in Microsoft Word. It doesn't matter what document management system you open or what you're using, you'll just be able to come in and open Word as you normally would. And we would install Spellbook through the Microsoft Store, and it looks like this. So when we open up the document and we open up Spellbook, it's now going to reference what's here in the document. So on the right-hand side, I can come in here and click into my settings. It's going to understand the parties within the document. And then I'll be able to use that and come in handy when we run a review. As you can see, there's different types of reviews that we can run through Spellbook. The first being a general review. It's going to help with spotting obvious risks and issues in the document. So things like spelling mistakes, grammar issues, it's going to be able to help point out those things in the document as we go through them. We'll also be able to come in here and negotiate a contract. So if we come in and click on negotiate, we can come in here and, for example, add context on what we'd like to focus the negotiation on. So if we come in here and say something like Acme is particularly concerned about data security and needs 24/7 support, you'll be able to come in here and start this review. One of the great things about Spellbook is that if you make spelling mistakes, grammar issues, it's really intelligent in figuring out what we're trying to do. So you don't have to be precise, it will figure out what we're trying to do. Now, one of the great things about these reviews as well is that you'll be able to click the back arrow, and this can work behind the scenes under previous activity. So we'll be able to be productive and do something else while that's working here behind the scenes. Um, as you can see, we have other types of reviews that we can run, like a custom review. This is probably the most popular type of review that people run. So we can highlight, for example, a body of text in the documents. If we want to update this for the current client, for the current matter, we'll be able to select this, ask it to focus on the selected body of text. It understands our parties here from our settings, and we can tell it here the instructions on how to word this paragraph for the new client or for the new matter. So we can come in here and say something like, let's make the confidentiality obligations more aggressive and mutual between the parties. We can also have the vendor GDPR compliant. When we run a review, the first thing it's going to do in Spellbook is it's going to read the whole document for context so that when it does suggest a change in language, it matches the writing style of the agreements in front of us. So that way it looks like it's made by a human, and so there's context for what's happening here in the document. The second thing that's going to happen is it's going to keep all of our defined terms when redrafting from Spellbook so that it's consistent throughout the documents. It uses AI to understand what the defined terms are. It doesn't even have to be capitalized. It will just read the agreement and figure it out when redrafting. The third thing that's going to happen here is it's going to keep us in complete control. So Spellbook is never going to make a change unless we give it permission to do so. So we can see here it's suggesting a change in language. It's looking to remove some red, and it's looking to add some green here as well to the agreement. If I don't like this, I don't have to accept it. I have the ability to come in here and edit the suggestion before adding it to the document. I can come in here and refine it myself. I can preview the rest of the change I can come in here. There's only one change in this example, so if I click the show button, it's just going to show me where that change is. But if I were to, for example, update the whole document, it can point me around to verify and see where the changes are going to be. We could also add a comment explaining why this change was made as well if we'd like, and it will do that here if we expand it. And once we're happy with this, we can apply the change, and it's going to look like this. So there's no metadata left behind. It doesn't say Spellbook anywhere. It just uses the normal redlining features of Word as if you had made the change yourself. So we can see here it says my name and the change in line exactly as if you'd use the normal redlining features of Word. So if we come back in here to review, we can see that we can also create playbooks. Playbooks are excellent for contract review. If you have a rinse and repeat style scenario of what you would accept or reject in a contract, it is designed for you to come in here and build your own playbooks. It's really easy for you to build a playbook. You can clone one of our starter examples. I'll touch on our starter examples in a minute, but you can also give Spellbook your own model document. So you'll be able to give Spellbook the documents. It will understand what is in the documents. It will build a playbook around that, and then you'll be able to have your own. You also have the ability to just describe a playbook and what you're looking for, or the ability to start from scratch. So if I start with one of our examples, we can see in here there's quite a few, there's 12, and it's suggesting this one here at the top is the best example for this agreement. So I can see it comes with rules and questions. If I run this playbook, these rules will either pass or fail after reading the document. So we can click into one of these here as an example for the customer. The green check mark indicates that it has passed the test. So the rule is the agreement should clearly identify the customer using its formal legal name. And if we click in here to the reasoning, we can cross-reference to make sure it came or understand how it came to the conclusion. So if we click on section reference 1, we can see the client is Acme Motors. And under 2, it's clearly defined throughout the agreement. Now, if we scroll down in here, we can see some of these are red as well, indicating that they did not pass the test. So if we expand one of these like renewal, we can see the rule. If the customer's subscription renews, then the agreement should clearly define the fees payable for renewal terms. And we can see why did it fail. Again, it gives us the explanation using AI and the section references. And it can suggest here a change in language using an inline change. So we can jump to the text. I mean, we did already do that here. So it's selected this body of text. We could insert this to the documents and it will add the red line for me in here to the document. And it's also suggesting that this is missing. So it's come up with its own language to come in here and add the renewal fee schedule. So if we come in here, we have the ability to insert this to the document as well if we choose, and it will add that for us, again, using the normal redlining features of Word. So the rules will pass or fail, but the questions will help you understand the documents in front of you. So we can see in here the first question is order form. Does the agreement include an order form or similar? And we can see in here that it does. So it says yes, and it gives us the section references to understand that. And same thing with fee increases. So does the service provider have the right to increase fees? If so, under what circumstances? And it will point us around the document to help us how it came to that conclusion. Now, we also have the ability to export the playbooks out of Spellbook with the results. So it's going to generate an AI summary that we could share by email if we choose. But we also have the ability to export it as a PDF or a docx file to take it with us out of Spellbook. So if we want to share it with a client or with a colleague or the other party, you'll be able to easily take that out of Spellbook as well. So if we click back in here to playbooks just for a moment, we can see in here this MSA infant example was built around this playbook. So this is an example that I created. I have the ability to come in here and edit this playbook. So I can come in here and I can see through this, we have the different rules that was created around this document. So if we expand something like fee payment conditions, it made this rule itself just by reading the documents in front of us. So it says contracts must include a payment clause that outline the fees for the services and implementation services, provides for billing of additional fees, and then the preferred language that are generated here as well based on this document. So I could highlight a body of text to enhance the rule text if I want to update it or change it based on a different document. I could do that. I have the ability to add fallback provisions. So in this example here, it says that the customer should be able to pay the fees, I think within 30 days here. So if I want to add a fallback provision, I could easily come in here and accept maybe 45 days or 60 days as a fallback provision so that when we review a contract in the future, that rule will still pass. Even if it's not exactly the 30, we can create what we would also accept. Now, we also have the ability to add risk levels as needed, and then add an attachment as well with notes or a suggested change in language. So that's the basics on playbooks here. We also have the ability to compare documents through a review. If you need to do that, if you send out, for example, a document, you get a document in return, it can help you overlap them and understand what's changed. And then we can summarize the red lines through the agreement as well. So it understands our party again, and then it'll read the document. If we're dealing with a document that has some changes, it will help us understand who's made what changes and why. So we could click around here. We can see, we can show the target so I can see who's made what changes and why, and then I could accept or reject the changes as needed. That's the basics on review. So we'll touch on benchmarks here. With Benchmark, what we've done is we've pre-made 2,300 checklists for when you're drafting your own agreements. So Playbooks is great for contract review. Benchmark is great for when you're drafting. So out of the 2,300, it's going to automatically detect which checklist is best, which is the SaaS services agreement. And then it's going to tell us where we have coverage, what's missing. It's going to suggest where to add coverage and give us a change in language as well. So we can see in here, there's confidentiality and proprietary rights. We meet 2 out of 3 rules. Again, the rules in green have passed, and the one in red here has failed. So return and destruction of customer data. The contract must include provisions for the return and destruction of customer data is missing. If we go to, I can see this is a incomplete sentence. I didn't finish my thought here. So if I show fix, it wants to add the language in green. It's going to use the exact same methodology as when we ran a review of reading the document for context, keeping our defined terms, matching the writing style. So if I believe this is missing and this is a good fix, I can insert the change to the documents and it'll add it for me. Now, these checklists are designed to be very thorough and overly complete. So not every change makes sense every time. So if I don't think that payment terms makes sense in this contract, I don't have to add it. I can just come in here after reviewing it and confirming this doesn't make sense. I can mark it as reviewed and the change won't be made to the document, but it's been resolved. These checklists are designed to be very broad with their scope as well, because we do have 2,300. You could modify all of the checklists to meet your standards. So you can come in here and change it as you need to, and you'll also be able to create standards as well. So if you have your own model document, Spellbook can learn from that, and then you'll be able to create your own checklist. So under more standards, you can see all of the ones that you've made, as well as the one that Spellbook comes with as well. So it's not just like this example agreement here. There's checklists for family law, estate planning, letter writing, motions, corporate, commercial, real estate, you name it. We pretty much have a checklist for it. If we don't, you can modify an existing one, or you'll be able to create your own as well. If we just touch on the Assistant tab here to finish up, we have the ability to ask a question. So if we come in here, we can see because this is a contract, we can say something like, what are the risks to Acme Motors? It's going to read the documents in front of us and help us do that risk analysis. So it's going to come in here and help us think through the documents. It's not going to make the changes. It's just here for us to be a chat box for us to talk to. and it will help me answer the questions. We can ask a follow-up question here if we need to, if we want to be able to come in and ask a follow-up question about how to handle this better or how to mitigate the risk, we can do that. But most people use Spellbook to be more efficient, and a great way that people use Spellbook to be more efficient is to use it to write emails. So if we ask it to like turn that into an email for my client, it can reword that into an email-friendly format, which you can easily copy and take with you. So very common use case here. It even gives us a little handy copy button at the bottom to take it out of Spellbook and take it with us. Now, we also have the ability here to draft. So if we want to come in and draft a new clause or a new document from scratch, we can do that as well. The more specific we are with our request, the more accurate the answer is going to be. So I asked it to actually draft a governing law clause here, and it's going to read the document here in front of us for context. So you'll notice I didn't tell it where to make the governing law clause, but it's suggesting California. And the reason it's doing that is because this document mentions California in a few places. So this used AI to generate the suggestion here. It's come up with a few different variations to create this clause. But as you can see, we also have an option for My Library. So you also have the ability to give Spellbook your own language that you'd like it to know through our clause library. And that way you can repurpose your own language that you prefer and like to use on a regular basis as well. So I do have some examples here that we pulled in from Edgar. So that way I don't have to use the AI if I don't want to. I can repurpose my own language and it search my own database for a governing law clause as well. So that's the basics on the Word plugin. I will hand it back here to Dave.
Perfect. John, Thomas actually asked that whether or not we're state specific. We actually are. Do you want to give just a little bit of context about jurisdiction as well?
Sure. So when we are using Spellbook, it's going to read what's in the document for context, as well as the prompt that you're giving it to come up with an accurate answer. But also in our settings, we also have a jurisdiction setting here. So it will read the document for context, but you could come in here and change that. So if we need to come in here and make a modification, we could totally do that as well. But I hope that answers your question, Thomas.
Perfect. I'll just continue with the presentation. Thanks. Really appreciate that, John, for that overview. If anyone has any ongoing questions, please don't hesitate. And in case anyone is interested in using Spellbook, we are offering a discount for everyone at Wilmic. We have a landing page, which is www.spellbook.legal/Wilmic. And Moose has actually put that landing page in the chat. So if you just click on that landing page, you'll be able to book in with one of our account executives and they'll be able to provide you a discount on Spellbook and our entire suite. And I actually think that it's 25% on Spellbook, but 50% off our Agentic solution, which is Associate, which we'll be talking about next. Perfect. So just moving forward, and sorry, the Zoom is actually covering my screen. Great. So, we wanted to jump into the heart of the lecture, and there's this new, really exciting technology, which is agentic AI. And we thought it'd be worth rolling up to, the Wilmic network. What are these sort of innovations that are occurring in the AI space? And how can we leverage them as lawyers to have the best possible practice? And so one thing we need to start thinking about is agentic AI and how it actually differs from other types of AI. And so when we think about what is an AI agent, what really differentiates it is its capacity to respond dynamically to its environment. So you can ask an AI agent to perform a particular task. It'll refine its output according to what you told it, and it'll be able to do this largely autonomously. And so as we start to sort of discuss, this new type of technology, what you'll sort of notice is that AI agents have this propensity to act in a very human-like way. And so this is a scholastic model. It comes from Agrawal and colleagues. And sorry, John, would you mind just thumbsing up if you can see my screen? I just want to make sure. Okay, perfect. Sometimes I lose it, so I think that's just great. So we really want to understand this concept of agenticness. And so to understand what agenticness is, we actually have to look at some key features. So the more a technology system can work autonomously, the less instruction it needs, the higher its level of agenticness. Additionally, it's AI agents can typically execute on specific objectives. They're largely goal-oriented. And in systems with a high degree of agenticness, not only can it complete objectives, it can also recommend new objectives based on the actual plan and the work that you're doing. Additionally, these types of solutions are highly adaptable. They can adjust based on what's occurring in the environment. If there's any resistance, if there's any sort of tension to completing the work, the AI agent can actually, start to think about a way to resolve those problems. Bad agents or, systems with low agenticness will hallucinate. So that means they come up with a sort of false or fake solution, which is not great. But well-adapted solutions or solutions with high agenticness will think of a workaround or will declare to the user what is actually missing in the system. And so when we think about AIs, not all of them are equally strong. And so you want to find a vendor solution that actually, tells you, hey, I don't have the requisite amount of data to fulfill that function. How would you like to proceed? The final concept is actually interactivity. And so a lot of people take this for granted, but AI agents have been sort of inherently developed to connect to the internet. But that's not an embedded capability. It's a really useful one, though. And so, as a consequence of being able to, link to these different tools, it can access most of the knowledge and most of the different technologies that it could actually potentially adapt to. And, we'll talk about interactivity, but it's getting kind of interesting. There are these concepts called MCPs, where agents can actually, address and actually interact with a whole suite of applications and tools. And it can do it in a very automatic way. And actually, in the future, and I don't think this will be the crux of this presentation, but in the future, we're actually discovering that agents can actually interact with other agents. So this is called an A to A framework or an agent to agent framework. That's, I think, a few years away, but it's certainly something that's worth thinking about today. And so when a system actually has a high degree of agenticness, it becomes an agent. And one thing you'll notice is that's actually correlated to the particular industry you're in. Oops. Okay, so that was a scholastic model for how we think about agents. But I think another model is this vendor model that I find pretty interesting. And so, how do we actually define an AI agent if you're a vendor, if you're a customer? So, the first thing we do is we think of a task that we want the agent to complete, and we ask it to come up with a plan, or it'll automatically come up with a plan. And you'll see that when we're working with Associate. And in that planning phase, when the AI agent is coming up with its plan, we typically call that chain of thought reasoning. So the model will sort of discover or sort of show you or showcase what its reasoning is for completing that particular task. From there, the agent will actually begin to do work. It'll work across multiple documents and applications. It'll review the work. It'll see if there's any, other issues, and it'll consequently revise the plan. It might, a system with, again, a high degree of agency might come to you and say, hey, we think that there's an NDA that needs to supplement this shareholder agreement or this partnership agreement. It'll suggest other outcomes and objectives beyond the initial task that you provided it. And what you notice is it actually has this really cool feedback loop, right? If you were to work with a junior associate, you'd probably assign it some activity. You'll ask that junior associate to do some work across multiple documents. You'll both review that work, you'll revise the plan, and then you'll still have that similar feedback loop. So we talk about that ability to act a lot like a human, that human-like quality, and we sort of see that in its, in its actual ways of working. So how do agents actually affect the future of associates and the future of law? What we're seeing just by the initial use of agents is that we're seeing a tremendous automation. So there's this incredibly rapid automation of legal tasks. So many routine tasks that used to be performed by junior associates are being fully automated. And this will, we think, continue to occur for the next few years. And I think the majority of drudgery will actually be sort of automated and tasked away to AI agents. And that part's really exciting. Not a lot of lawyers wake up in the morning, hoping for more drudgery or, these complex, fastidious tasks. They're much more inclined to want to work with their client. But that will have sort of rippling implications for the entire legal field. We're also seeing a significant amount of efficiency gains for law firms. So, the ability to handle legal research, contract review, document drafting, that's occurring with a significantly greater speed and accuracy. One interesting idea is this is having an impact on law students and junior associates. Law still typically uses this model of an apprentice model. And so effectively, a lot of drudgery, a lot of this mundane work is actually provided to junior associates, to law students. And this effectively allows them to access a body of knowledge, right? They go through all this mundane work, and that's a form of training and a way that they can actually gain the experience needed to perform well in the future. But if this mundane work, if all these details can be handled by a technology or an AI system, it reduces the need for these initial junior associates. So we now have to think about more sophisticated ways of training law students and training these junior associates. And I'm lucky enough that in my job I get to work with some enterprise organizations to help them with their new training plan. And then one other final consideration is there's a shift in our skill demand. So when you look at job descriptions now for associates and for junior associates, you'll see things like AI proficiency or technology proficiency. You'll see skills like prompt engineering. 5 years ago, it's not clear to me that any job description would request prompt engineering or that people would even know what prompt engineering is. So we're now seeing this shift in skill and demand. And so we're, moving more towards strategic capabilities, the ability to, actually leverage technology to get the solution or the deliverable or the output you're looking for. And other skills, like being strong at spelling or being a strong grammarian, it's not to say that they don't matter, but perhaps they'll matter less. If you can go to an automatic technology solution and ask for it to complete the grammar or to find, coherence between, a suite of documents, those types of skills may be slightly less useful moving forward. One interesting sort of quote that comes from a paper that I enjoy, specifically in the legal field, is that forthcoming studies seem to suggest that humans perceive agentic workflow models as more trustworthy than other systems. And we're actually seeing that that effect is most pronounced in the legal industry. So you're probably thinking, okay, this is cool. These are some interesting, technological suites. But as a lawyer, most people we speak to are actually concerned with things like attorney-client privilege and data privacy. So, when you use a conventional LLM, any of the publicly available LLMs or AI systems, you know, they do raise issues around confidentiality and data breach. So a lot of these, public systems have had data breaches, and counterparties have been able to access information that was supposed to be and supposed to remain confidential. And so vendor solutions like Spellbook, we're SOC 2 compliant. And additionally, we have something called zero data retention. So when we integrate with a number of different LLMs, we actually negotiate agreement such that we actually retain zero data once the session is closed. So the LLM will not train off your data. It can't be accessed in the same way, and it sort of protects the confidentiality and the privacy of your client data. And so when you are trying to purchase a vendor solution, it's recommended you try to find that data retention clause. And that's something that certainly Spellbook has. Additionally, there's bias in training data. So when you look at a lot of conventional LLMs, there are a lot of historical biases. There's the propensity to hallucinate. If you work with a vendor solution, again, like Spellbook, you'll find that we are a finely tuned model. So the propensity to have these biases, the propensity to hallucinate is diminished significantly. Finally, lawyers actually have to think about how they're using AI. They can't just blindly rely on what the AI suggests. So as John sort of showcased in the Spellbook demo, a number of suggestions are provided by Spellbook, but ultimately it's the lawyer that leverages their experience, their critical thinking, to determine what needs to actually change, right? Benchmark will provide 100 possible changes or 50 possible changes, and perhaps only 10 or 20 of those has to be adjusted in your contract. And so that level of expertise is still there. We like to think of, Spellbook as almost like an electronic bicycle, right? Or something that sort of 10x's your productivity, but ultimately you still need to steer the device. Finally, there's this concept, which is the unauthorized practice of law. AI agents have actually become so strong and they can provide so much content and advice. There's this concern that people will actually start to adapt this technology and try to circumnavigate actually going to a lawyer. We think that's a terrible approach. I think, this technology its best use is making lawyers who are already proficient, who are already experts, considerably more efficient. And so that's why we're so excited to have these types of webinars and to sort of educate different networks. We really want these technology tools to be in the hands of lawyers, and that's certainly where Spellbook has put its focus. We think that lawyers leveraging these tools are, considerably more expert and considerably more efficient than, having these tools sort of randomly generate legal advice without supervision. Perfect. So this actually brings us to Associate, which is the actual first autonomous AI agent for lawyers to come to market. And John will move us through the demo for Associate.
Thanks, Dave. Just want to make sure I unmute myself there before I start talking. But um, Spellbook Associate is either available as a web app, which we can see here, and it's also available as a desktop app that you can install directly into your computer. It has the same functionality, just depends on how you want to get access to it. And with Spellbook Associate is going to unlock new and different functionality for us that we weren't able to accomplish through the Word plugin. So when we open Spellbook Associate, this is what it looks like. We have the ability to open up a new project. So we can either upload files from our computer, or we could try a pre-made example from Spellbook. So the first difference with Spellbook Associate is that it's going to allow us to work on multiple documents at the same time. So if we see here on the right, we can see that it's provided us with 4 different NVCA documents as well as a term sheet. And the second difference with Spellbook Associate is that we're going to be able to compare documents, with the third change being the ability to work with PDFs as well. So we can come in here and ask it to perform an action based on these documents. So we can say, like, please provide the list of terms from the Acme Motors term sheet. And it's going to read what's in this document here and then provide us with the list of terms. I have the ability to come in here and click into it, and it's going to be able to allow me to preview the document that's in here as well. So I could come in here, I could cross-reference the terms that Spellbook is giving me here through Associate if I wanted to. And then I'll be able to ask it to follow up on this and be able to update the other documents here. So we can draft from one document to another. If you have a series of documents that cascade from one to the other, you'll be able to use Associate here to come in and update the other documents as well. So we can say, please update the other, NVCA documents using that term list. It's going to be able to come in here and create a plan. It's going to tell me what it's trying to accomplish or what it's about to accomplish. It's going to create a plan here. And then it's going to be able to give me the ability to select the documents that I want to work on. So I have the ability to click into them. I could work on them all at once. I could work on them one by one. It's up to me. I'm in control here. Spellbook is going to do what I ask it to. So when I ask it to start here, it's going to be able to come in and start working on these. So as it goes through these, it's going to work through them in real time. It's going to indicate with a yellow circle here that it's starting to work on these different documents. So it's going to indicate that it's working. I could click into these documents as well as it's working, so I could preview the changes that it's creating here. Again, previewing the documents, it's already come up with 5 suggested changes on this document, and I could see what they are as they get created here through Associate. So I could come in here and see all of the different changes on the right if I wanted to scroll down. It will take a couple of minutes to go in here and update the different documents, and it will give us a progress bar. So we'll be able to see the progress that it's making here in real time and how close it's coming to completion. Now, I did run these behind the scenes just before we started, so I can see here that once it finishes, it turns green. So I've switched tabs here, and I can see that these have completed. So if I click into this, I can see that it's made 19 changes. I have the ability to click the show button. It will help me find where these are in the document so I could go through them. I have version control here as well at the top, so I can see the document that I started with the original versus the latest document that I have. Now, in terms of a workflow, I could accept them through here as I was showing, but we also have the ability to download this. So if I want to download this to my computer, I can do that. And I can use the Spellbook Word plugin through the suggested changes if I want to come in to accept or reject these changes as well. So this is just a common workflow that I've seen people do. People are very comfortable using the desktop version of Word. So I could come in here to the review tab. I have the ability to summarize red lines. I can come in here to select the party, and then I'd be able to start the summarization, and it will read the document, and I can use the normal redlining features of Word, just like we showed earlier, to accept or reject the changes made through Associate. So it's going to take a couple minutes here to go through the whole document and summarize all of the changes. So we can come back here to Spellbook Associate. We can see the different changes here that it's made and preview all of these different documents. Now, we also have the ability to compare documents. So it's just a matter of coming in here and asking it a question. So I could say something like, please compare the NVCA VA document to the NVCA SPA and outline the differences in a table format. It's going to be able to come in here, review the documents, and help us see side by side on what these changes look like. So as you can see, it's a really clean interface. It's really helping us understand what the differences are between the documents and the changes that have been made here. And then the third functionality with Spellbook Associate is the ability to work with PDFs. So I know that this document here isn't necessarily in line with the others, but I have the ability to come in here and ask it a question. So I could say like, please summarize the commercial lease agreements, and we'll be able to come in and summarize this document. And if I do get a PDF document that I need to pull from this document into another, I could also have the ability to draft from the PDF into a Word document as well. So you'll just need to provide it with the precedents to start from, and then it will be able to go in and update that document. So that's the basics on Spellbook Associate here. I will pass it back to Dave to continue the presentation.
It's awesome. Thanks, John. Perfect. Okay. And so we just wanted to end the presentation with a few more slides. You know, we're looking at the power of these agents, and we made some predictions early on about where we thought the trajectory of agents are going. And I just wanted to give sort of kudos to our executive team. They seem to understand the landscape for AI agents and AI technology a little bit better than most of the market. We had this sentiment that AI agents would become AI colleagues, and that you sort of have this co-pilot function. And this was something that was not really well understood a few years ago. Now it seems like a really obvious trait that people are starting to humanize this technology, but that seemed like a real aberration. But this is something that our executive team sort of acknowledged early on. And it's really cool because actually, Sam Altman and ChatGPT sort of discussed how a few months ago they're spending tens of millions of dollars simply as a result of their client saying thank you to ChatGPT during their inquiries. And so we're starting to see this sort of really interesting ability to work with human AI agents. Another concern was that, there was this expectation that there would be a data plateau so that there would be limited training data. But actually, that turned out not to be an issue because we can actually make synthetic data. And our ability to actually, leverage compute more efficiently allowed us to come up with more efficient ways of actually dealing with the data plateau. And so now we can do a lot more with a lot less data. And then finally, what's really interesting is as people start to use this system, the system tends to personalize itself a little bit more. So, when you start to use LLMs, when you start to use Spellbook or Associate, it'll actually adapt to the way you use it. And it'll start to understand your preferences, your preferred, things that you want to change, the way you like to draft the information. It'll actually start to customize itself. And again, I know we've spent some time talking about the human-like nature, but this is probably true of a smart associate, right? If you hire a lawyer and they understand your ways of working, they'll start to adapt the way they do their work to sort of please you and sort of, align with your ways of working. Great. And we're developing all these new AI solutions and all these new tools and techniques, but there are some things that we wanted to keep top of mind, which is how do we keep agentic AI systems safe as we're developing? One thing we like to think about is how suitable are the AI agents for a particular task. So we leverage this principle of task suitability. We take all the LLMs and we test it against a legal task. So when it comes to redlining, when it comes to adjusting a contract, we leverage these different LLMs and we test them to see which one is actually the best fit for completing the task. We have the ability to actually constrain and have human approval. What you'll notice with Spellbook, Spellbook and Associate is that there are these guardrails. And so we recommend particular changes, but it's always ultimately up to the lawyer to accept or reject those changes. And so there is that ability to execute on those changes. There's also transparency in decision making. When we ask, Associate to actually come up with a plan for how to adjust those different technologies, it'll provide its chain of thought and its reasoning. And then finally, there's the ability to interrupt and control. And so one thing John sort of mentioned is that if something goes awry while you're editing these documents, you can always go back to a previous version. So the ability to shut down or the ability to have control to go back to previous versions are also embedded in our technology suite. And these are all sort of best practices for, the safety and accountability of AI systems. Cool. I wanted to get and leave 10 minutes towards the end for questions, but I guess just to talk a little bit about the partnership. As mentioned, Wilmic and Spellbook have recently partnered, and so we want to make sure that everybody here gets 25% off all plans. So if you just go to www.spellbook.legal/Wilmic, and you can also find this on your chat bar, you'll get 25% off any solution. And in fact, for Associate, we're actually giving away 50% off. So, whether or not you're an attendee or whether or not you're watching this as a recording, we're offering 25% off Spellbook and 50% off Associate, the AI solution, simply for attending. And if you're having trouble with the link, you can always just click on the link on the sidebar of the chat. I'd love to open up the floor to some questions. Moose, I don't know if you're able to read them. If there are any questions coming in, we're happy to answer either John or I.
Yeah, all the questions have been answered, but we had a nice one from Tom from Laura here asking about drafting and do we serve as like a contract repository, and if we're looking to integrate into things like DocuSign for e-signature.
Yeah, that's a great one. We are currently talking. I'm leading partnerships at Spellbook, and so we are talking to some e-signature companies, and we are looking to integrate with some contract lifecycle management software as well. Currently, we don't have any specific or preferred partners, but I think within a quarter or two, that is on our roadmap, and that is something you'll definitely be seeing in short order with Spellbook. So we're excited to announce something, but we're still in the negotiation phase, if I'm being honest.
A couple of quick comments, if I may. As I opened, I explained that much of the conversation so far from Wilmic has been, from the ethical perspective, and you did answer some of those concerns today, Dave. Thank you. And I just want to remind our policyholders that your responsibilities to be a lawyer don't go away just because you're using AI. And so, the Supreme Court Rule 20:5.3 talks about responsibilities regarding non-lawyer assistance. So whether you're speaking with, and in the traditional sense, that has always meant, are you properly supervising your associates and your paralegals and your legal assistants? This is really just an extension of that rule. So when you or any lawyer in your firm or any employee of your firm is using AI, there needs to be an underlying policy that talks about how it can be used and when it can be used and whether you have permission in the first place to use it. I've written several articles, maybe some of you have read them, about AI is coming and there's no turning back. So why did Wilmic enter into a partnership with Spellbook? Because Wilmic recognizes that it's not going away and that it needs to be used, and it needs to be used responsibly. And so we see it as our job to put in front of our policyholders those products that we think are meeting all of those criteria, and thinking ahead for you about what is necessary to be able to protect your work, to protect your clients. And we feel like this is the right kind of product to look at. So it's not a sales pitch. It's not anything else like that. It's just, hey, this is what's working. These guys have figured this out. Dave said to me at one point along the way that one of the founders of Spellbook is a lawyer himself. And so he understands a lot of what the drudgery is. And, he did what lawyers do, and he figured out a way to work around some of that drudgery, or work through some of that drudgery in a faster, more efficient way. So, just a comment and a reminder that your responsibilities to be a lawyer don't go away when you use AI. And just blind reliance on it is not the right answer. But using it to remove some of the drudgery so that you can focus on the good parts about being a lawyer is exactly what we're zeroing in on.
That's incredibly well said. Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Mhm.
Um, One of the founders is a gentleman named Danny, and he was actually thinking about quitting the practice of law because of the drudgery. He didn't want to put in those years where he's just looking over, paperwork for minute details, not really learning or interpreting and leveraging critical thinking. And when you talk to lawyers, they're far more interested in serving their client and thinking about high-level strategic problems than they are trying to make sure that, dot ink is, correctly attributed across documents. And so we're happy to take care of that doc ink, and that's a very easy thing for associate to take care of. So yeah, it's a real pleasure to sort of remove that drudgery as someone who's a former management consultant. That was not the most fun part of the job. So yeah, great. Um, I did want to address one thing. It's a comment from Lori. It seems like some people are having trouble booking on the site if they're a solo practitioner using Gmail. Just in case, if you're having any issues, Moose has left John Borlay's email at the bottom. So in case you're having trouble with the booking link, I'm surprised if there is an issue. We normally double check, but just in case there's any issues, you can email John Borlay directly, and he'll be able to help you. The discount certainly applies to everybody who is a lawyer, anybody in the Wilmick network, any friends and family of the Wilmick network. We really want to be a good partner here. So please do contact that email below, jborlay@spellbook.legal. And, we're more than happy to support any firm, regardless of the size or regardless of the email address. Awesome. Matt, that's it for Spellbook, unless you have any additional questions.
I don't. One comment and one announcement, I guess. One is that we have now worked with you on several different meetings, and Tom entered in the chat some concern that this is a little bit like drinking water out of a fire hose
Yeah.
for those lawyers who are new to the world of AI, including me. It does help, and Dave and his team have been fantastic about helping us understand exactly what this product is, what it can do. And so, don't hesitate to reach out. From Wilmick's perspective, we will do more of these, and we will do more to heighten awareness of the product and how it can be used and leveraged. So please reach out to us, and we'll help out as well. And then the second is the announcement, and that is just that Dave has graciously agreed to come to the Solo Small Firm General Practice Conference in October, and so we will be hearing again from him and in a much broader audience. But to that end, thank you, Dave and Mustafa and John. This was very enlightening. We really appreciate it. And I'd be remiss if I didn't just read Tom's comment in the chat. In case you haven't seen it, the lawyer is still responsible for your work product, whether you use AI or not. Dave, could you talk about what makes Spellbook more accurate and efficient and secure than other AI software?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So what makes Spellbook more secure typically is we were actually the first to the market. So we invest a lot more resources of ours into the actual development than most other vendors. And certainly, when you look at a conventional solution like, some of the publicly available LLMs that are free to access or that are sort of broad purpose, they're not specific. They're not finely tuned for the practice of law. So that's the first concern. Typically the more specialized an AI is for tasks, the better it'll perform. So when you look at a vendor solution, it should, leverage a series of LLMs that have that sort of specificity for function. And that's part of our development ethos. The second consideration is the propensity to hallucinate. So unfortunately, when you use, I don't want to name ChatGPT, but let's say a solution like ChatGPT or any sort of publicly available LLM, you have that issue where, the solution has the propensity to want to hallucinate. And so there are things embedded in our code and the way we develop that are typically there to reduce and in fact almost immediately remove the issue to actually hallucinate. And then one final consideration, Spellbook is actually trained on every single publicly available legal database. We're trained on Edgar, we're trained on Cedar, we're also trained on some private databases. And so when you ask for what are the regulations, which is a great question I always ask, is I go into the Ask feature and I say, what are the regulations? What are the policies that actually govern the changes you recommended? It'll be able to provide and cite all of those, and it won't hallucinate in the same way that a broad LLM would. I
Excellent.
also
I think, oh, go ahead, Dave.
Oh, sorry. I saw one other comment from Thomas that I thought was also really interesting, which is especially for a lawyer who's not very familiar with AI, what's the best way to learn how to best use it? I think that's a fantastic question. Firstly, I would say just trial the software. The first few weeks of using Spellbook are entirely free, so just feel free to jump on and trial. And I think the AEs are super, they're super informative. They're more than happy to spend extra time with you, sort of educating the client. And then we also have power user training, so we also have additional sessions that customer support that's actually led by Moose. And Moose is one of the, more technically sophisticated guys on our team. So really happy that he could join. And so just, I think leveraging it and having those, short forms, whether it's one-on-one training or, small group training, just a few people there, I think that'll really enhance your usage. And I think you'll get a much better sense of the functionality. And I think the unfortunate part is most people don't always get to optimize, the entirety of the usage. But it's really just a matter of getting your hands on the practical use cases and the tool itself and then moving forward with more and more training as you sort of move forward. Yeah. And we also have a video library as well. I think someone just added another comment about training. There is, in fact, a video library in case you want to learn on your own time. But I would suggest the training. I think they're fantastic. And I always love spending time with Moose. So either way is good. Perfect.
Excellent. I think we'll have that be the parting shot, Dave. And again, thank you, everybody, for providing us all of this information. It's going to take a minute to digest it all, but that's okay. I know that Stephanie has recorded this, and so we will make it available at some point, somewhere, somehow. I don't know those specifications, but we will communicate them to you for sure. But with that, thank you for joining us and have a terrific weekend and try to stay cool. I understand it's going to be really hot. Oh, Moose, you have one more. You've got a hand raised.
No, I apologize. Just
Oh, no
we had a
worries.
question there that was just saying thank you. So we're saying thank you back.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone.
absolutely. Okay. So long.
Cheers.